let's go around the room, and I want to start down in my lower right corner with you, Jason. Jason Meshko, on the board of Secure the Village and longtime friend.
How's everybody doing? Most of you I know, but if you don't know me, I'm Jason Meshko with InTouch Insurance Services. I'm a full service risk management insurance brokerage, licensed in 34 states, specialize in technology and data privacy security, putting risk management solutions on the front end and using insurance on the back end, and partner with people like Rick and Mariana and Steve and so forth and so on to help educate as well as prevent individuals and companies from getting a data breach and a cyber attack. I'm also on the board of Secure the Village, and I've known Stan for a long time, Provisors days, and love collaborating with all you folks and meeting new people, and look forward to the presentation today. Thank you.
Great, Jason. And you mentioned Mariana, who happens to be on your left. As I look at my screen,
I can see everybody.
Mariana and I are kind of new friends to each other through you, Jason. So thank you, Mariana. Please introduce yourself and, of course, your company as well.
Yes, thank you, Stan, and thank you, Jason, for that. My name is Mariana Swan. I'm the program director for the legal and insurance vertical here at Pondurans. So we do incident response. We do managed detection and response, and then we also do assessment work. And I came here from RSA most recently with Doug Howard, who's also on the line. He's the CEO here at Pondurans.
That's super. Glad you were able to join us as well, Mariana. I want to move over. I'm going to stay on the bottom row, and which is situational for all of us. Of course, we are. Kyle Smith, how are you doing?
Doing well. I'm a copywriter. Freelance journalist. I started working with Aiden when I was in San Francisco and the pandemic hit. I'm back in Brooklyn, but yeah, just thought it'd be fun to come and hear people that know a lot about technology talk about it.
Okay, well, I'm glad there are people like you in the world, because we need to get the word out to the people on the streets, to this technology stuff. I mean, just look at what happened with, like just nonchalantly what happened to us today with Zoom, SolarWinds, basic stuff.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. And speaking of having to get it to the street, to the residents, if you will, is an opportunity to introduce my friend Steve Krantz, author, member of the board, and also author of Cyber Guardian, a Secure the Village guide for residents, and what will soon be the world's first Secure the Village branded application for Android and iOS. So, Steve.
Well, you took away all my thunder, Stan. Yeah, I'm a retired IBM exec and living in Southern California, enjoying life. I'm happy to be a member of the board, and I'm eager to get to know more of you. I put my information in the chat box, so I'm eager to hear more about you. Thanks.
Super. So glad you're here. And my introduction actually to Aiden was through, I don't know, Aaron, you look so comfortable out there. It looks like Hawaii. Why would you want to be here, with the Zoom call not working? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Stan. Yeah, I actually know Stan through my wife. Her dad introduced me to Stan, and Stan and I have been keeping in touch. And I mean, he's just got such a wealth of information. But I actually introduced Stan and Aiden together. I'm the head of marketing for Aiden, and I'm just very excited about the technology and just about being in the IT cybersecurity space. I've been a big fan and have actually been in IT and technology for quite some time. I used to run my dad's, my dad is in healthcare, and I used to run his office, the IT backend, but really I just kind of talked to a lot of people like you to try and get things fixed. I didn't really do too much. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Cool. Very, very glad you're here. You're glad for the introduction as well to the company. We'll hear, of course, we'll meet Aiden later on today. which I'm very much looking forward to. Next is, God, a longtime friend, Oliver Fox from Sandbox Technology. We haven't seen each other in probably a few years now.
Sometime.
Though we intersect regularly with common clients. So good to see you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm with Sandbox Technologies. I apologize. My name is not up. I noticed that I've got the default Sandbox Technologies name now. I'm the chief operating officer of the company. We're an MSP based out of Los Angeles. And like Stan mentioned, we've known each other for quite some time and crossed paths quite often. And for the longest time, I've wanted to join one of these events. And it so happened we're in the process of redoing our website completely. And I was literally working on a page, a matrix of ranking best to worst solutions for remote worker security and dealing with that challenge that's going to go up on our site. And when this invitation came in, so I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to join in and see what everybody has to say.
Cool. Well, very glad you're here. As I am, Michael, always good to see you. You've become quite a regular with us, which is great. It's like, you know, you're here for no matter what the topic of the meeting. You just seem to soak this stuff up.
Yes, Michael Lipton. I'm with TPX Communications. I'm an enterprise business consultant over here, and we specialize in providing a lot of different solutions, but with reference to Secure the Village, we provide managed security solutions and endpoint security protection, hybrid, cloud-based and premise-based backup solutions with ransomware protection on it. So a lot of various different products and solutions to give a complete security umbrella, if you will, to businesses. So we try to close the front door, the back door, and all the windows, keep everybody out, and work with a lot of the people on here, you know, who are consultants and others who advise and assist businesses and partner with a lot of people. And I just love coming here. And since I was introduced to the group a couple of years ago, and just passionate about security, passionate about Secure the Village. And my son just took a picture of me the other day, so I'll be able to go and add all of that onto the web page, so I can list myself as one of the one of the guardians there. And I'm just excited to be here and always wanting to learn what everybody brings to the table. Use my grandfather's old analogy: I know enough to know I don't know enough, so I got to keep
That and that is so much the key in this, and it's part of the mantra of Secure the Village. We have to keep learning in this space, and the best way to learn is to teach.
here.
And you know, I mean, I know that my first career was teaching calculus, and you know, I had taken calculus and all of that. It wasn't really till I taught it that I understood it. You know, that's the mechanism at work, and that's what Secure the Village is in some ways about. Richard Bortnick, Rick, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in like ages. Welcome.
And I had hair when last we spoke, I think.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
first of all, I want to thank Jason for inviting me. Jason and Mariana are, I would venture to say, two of my closest, dearest friends. I'm not sure they feel the same way, but so be it. I'm from Philly. I saw Kobe in high school because he lived about 5 blocks away. I went to high school at the same high school as Reggie Jackson and Benjamin Netanyahu. So I moved out here a year ago to spend time with my mom, who turned 95 last year. So I started my career in
Everybody where here is. They don't know where here is.
San Diego. I'm sorry, Carlsbad.
Okay.
So I was in TV news and wasn't making any money and wouldn't make any money because my news director told me I had a face for radio. So I went into law. I went to law school and worked with the FCC and the National Association of Broadcasters doing First Amendment and privacy. And then some guy named Reagan deregulated the industry, and there went that for a while. So in 2004, I came back. I wrote a cyber policy. I've worked on about 20 of them. So I underwrite, I do breach response. I do a lot of privacy training. Because of CCPA, there's a mandatory training component. There are a lot of other modules of CCPA, the New York Shield Act, NYDSF, et cetera, that people want training from a lawyer because ostensibly there's the imprimatur of privilege.
Sure.
So, having done this now for 17 years, people like Jason try to market me, and I provide what I think is fairly robust counsel on how not to get breached. And I think somebody else had said they do the IT side of that. So I think there's a symbiotic relationship there.
Sure. No, very good. Glad you're here. Glad to see you again. Philadelphia reminds me if you know Mark Howard.
Yeah, Action News.
Yeah, Action News. Mark Howard.
Yeah, my
uncle.
stepfather used to work at Channel 6. My dad did a
There you
lot of
go.
advertising at Channel 6.
Cool. Let me move on because Josh, I know you need time to speak as well, and I want to give Diane some
Also,
time
you
because
might
she's my
have to have a
co-host.
Giants jersey, if you don't mind, Richard and Stan. I'm going to go.
Right. But Seth, you're new, aren't you? Have you been to one of these before?
No, this would be my first one. I got the invite and I was just curious. I'm the director of engineering for Business Technology Partners, where basically we turn four walls, or sometimes not even four walls, and I'm in charge of designing the teams and doing the project management for getting information and communications technologies up and running. Kind of the real world side of it's not really cyber, it's dealing with construction people as well as IT and technical people, engineers, in order to actually build facilities and upgrade facilities and things like that.
Sure. Well, glad you're here. Senses, I mean, so much of security touches everything. So really glad you're here as well. I want to go to someone who's a new friend, just met recently, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, Sammy Basu of Careful Security. Welcome again. Good to see you.
Thank you. I'm Sammy. Recently got connected with Stan's World. And then I teach and provide information security, like PCI compliance, ISO 27001 compliance. And I also met Steve, and my dad lives in India, and I have to provide long hours of tech support to him. So I just told my dad, like, Steve has wrote a book for seniors, and if he would read it, and I said, I can get you a Kindle version. And in true senior fashion, he said, no, I need a paperback. So I just ordered one. Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Let me go to Juan Rosales, also new. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. And tell us a sentence or two about yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the invite. My name is Juan Rosales. I am the IT manager, or RWS Life Sciences, one of the biggest translation companies for biopharma. Aiden client. And overall, just trying to orchestrate the challenges of a global network and trying to be safe, compliant, and keep myself out of trouble. I see a little TPX communications contact here. Say hello to Matt. He's my TPX internet line trap. So
cool. Very nice. Yes, exactly. Glad you're here, Juan. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. We got Sean and Amber, I guess, both from Aiden. Sean, you want to jump in?
Sean Maloney. I'm Josh's co-founder and the creator of the Aiden software and service. It makes computers set themselves up and keeps them up to date and configured how you want without requiring too much IT effort.
Perfect. Glad you're here. Amber, also good to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I recently joined Aiden with Josh and Sean and Aaron and the whole team, working with Sean, doing some of the packaging work and development and making application packaging deployment more secure. So I was a contractor for many years and they kind of took me under their wing and I'm excited to be a part of this. So.
Well, that's cool. It's great.
Very-
Yeah. So and again, I'm just in conclude. I'm Stan Stahl. In addition to being founder president of Secure the Village, I'm also director of information security management at a firm, Miller Kaplan. I had my own security company, Citadel Information Group, which we sold to Miller Kaplan a year ago. And we do basically CISO work, assessments, vulnerability scans, policies, training, if it has to do with information security from the boardroom to the firewall. We're involved in all of that as well. Next person I want to introduce is my co-host, and the reason you're last, Di, as you know, is because you get to talk for a few minutes. You get to give us an update on the industry, some more information about you and your firm, of course, and so please, share with us. Tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Stan. And it's not about me. This is more about one of the reasons we started this happy hour is to help organizations like Aiden get more exposure. And Secure the Village is building their network and trying to help organizations network with each other and be a resource for many other industries and companies. And so a little bit about myself, have owned DKKD Staffing for about 10 years. I've worked with Stan for about 20 years. And in fact,
time flies.
I know, right? Did a lot of placements at a lot of Citadel's companies and clients over the years. And then Miller Kaplan was actually a client of mine prior to Citadel, and they acquired him. So now I'm doing staffing as well at Miller Kaplan. And the primary focus for me is Southern California, building IT teams, executive down to help desk. Security has always been a big niche of mine. I do a lot of security staffing. And that's why this is really important to me as well, is because I get to hear from the users themselves, the people who are the IT managers, the people who are selling the products, and I can have those conversations with my clients and the candidates that are job seekers. And then Stan knows as well that not only do I work on fulfilling what the clients come to me for, I also help others get referrals into companies. So if I know people within a company and somebody comes to me, especially at a management level or above, and would like an introduction into a company. So if you know anybody on the market, keep this in mind. I do introductions. A couple months ago, helped a CIO get his new job, at the Valley Presbyterian, the business analyst at PharmaVite. So it's not just about what I have as job openings, it's helping everybody network as well. And I hope today some of you are on the call for the first time. Hopefully you'll get on some technology. And so now we want to hear from Aiden and all the good stuff that is happening over there, Josh.
That's super. Just forgive me. Because of somebody putting something in a chat, I realized that I was not seeing there's 7 people who are not on video. I was only seeing those 7 on video. Forgive me, but just in the interest of time, I want to, Josh, just take it over. Just run with it, because yeah.
Okay, well, my presentation is not that long, so if you want to give these people an opportunity to introduce themselves, it's fine. We have time. I think it's 6:43. I'm going to have about a half hour of content.
Oh, then that's fine. Let's do that. I'm glad. Yeah. So I guess let's start. Tony Carter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Carter, CEO of Overbrook Technologies, also out of the Philadelphia area, Overbrook section, Overbrook High School. I started my company way back in, I guess probably around 1996 or 97, major contract with the United States Postal Service. And since then, those contracts have kind of dried up, but I've been doing other small businesses to large businesses within the Philadelphia area, and very interested in the security space these days, because that's where things are going. I mean, everybody needs to know more about ransomware, and small to medium-sized businesses need to ramp up. And I'm happy to be on the call to listen and get some great ideas from you guys.
Well, we're grateful that you're here because it does take a village to secure the village, as we know. Doug Howard, good to hear you.
Hi, everybody. Doug Howard, I'm CEO of Pondurance, as Mariana mentioned.
There you go. Right. Oh, you are on video.
Yeah. We do a number of different services, all the way from consulting all the way to MDR. We've recently received a large funding as well, so you'll probably see a little bit more of us in the marketplace. And friends with Jason, Richard, and you know, we're all controlled and managed by Mariana on a daily basis, so we're all good.
Yeah, and our speaker next month as well.
Great to meet everybody.
Good, glad you're here. Tim Watkins.
Tim, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, can you guys hear me? Hey, awesome. So I'm at Sandbox Technologies here in Los Angeles. Let me turn my video on. So I'm here with Los Angeles. Oliver Fox, I think, is here as well. He's our COO. I'm our project coordinator. So I saw the email because I get your weekly security review emails on Sundays, and I saw the email for this event. So I was really interested in it because we've been talking a lot internally about endpoint management now that so many people have shifted to remote work, and it's definitely how permanent it becomes is a question, but it's definitely a portion of it's becoming permanent. So I'm really interested to see what others are doing in this space.
Well, that's cool. That's exactly what, you know, part of what we hope brings people to these events, and then from there it just could grow and grow and grow. Tom Bradbury, tell us about yourself.
How you doing? My name is Tom Bradbury. I'm an advisor on the advisory board for Aiden, and I'm here to support and learn and be a part of you know, the crowd here. Thanks.
Well, glad you're here, and don't be here just on the occasions that Aiden is here. Please join us.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
Every month and every month. Yeah. Let's see, Tony. We did Matt. Matt, you're there. Matt.
There we go. Hey, hello. My name is Matt Strunk. I am a cloud engineer slash managed services provider consultant. I specialize in helping small and medium-sized businesses just move to the cloud, such as like Office 365, AWS, and Microsoft Azure.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yes, so much of that is moving that way. So very glad as well. Yeah. Glad you're here, Matt, as well. And who I think is now the last one. There's somebody, no name. It just says iPhone. So I'm not sure who that is.
Oh, that might be me.
Yep, that's you.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'll be really quick. I'm Sylvia Malou. I'm with Strategic Technology Solutions, and we are a managed service provider. We're driven to outperform and deliver superior technology results for our clients, as well as IT security solutions. So thanks for having me, everyone.
Oh, Sylvia, great to see you. I didn't recognize you with your name change. You know,
I'm on an iPhone.
Yeah. You didn't tell me you changed your name to iPhone, you know.
Sorry.
But glad to see you. Certainly.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Thank you. Thank you. And now, Josh, with all that's happened since 4 o'clock is now your show. So please, yeah.
Stan, Diane, everybody, thank you very much. Thanks for having myself and our team as guests in Secure the Village. And, you know, really, it's a great cause that you guys have. I just want to mention at the outset, you know, we feel very passionate about, at least I do, and have for a long time, about the fact that more people need to take cybersecurity knowledge gathering and kind of like just being part of cybersecurity system and understanding what's happening. Someone's joining us here, Anthony Carter, to heart. And you know, this was never more present for me than when the whole SolarWinds hack happened a couple of months ago when it first came out. And there were a lot of articles written. I don't know if you guys remember seeing, there was one article that really solidified this in my mind. And I think I blogged about it on LinkedIn, but they talked about how Microsoft unleashed the unlimited power of the Death Star that it has against the assailants and the people who exploited us in the SolarWinds hack, and, you know, went into action and shut everything down. And, you know, I read that, and the first thing I thought is, well, first of all, I read everything they did, and these are the same things they do in almost every kind of hack incident that happens ever, but they made it sound like it was so much more grandiose here. You know, not to diminish Microsoft, and we appreciate them getting involved and being more public about helping to secure the village. But in reality, it's almost like that kind of rhetoric enables people to say, well, big companies like Microsoft, Apple, whoever, they're going to solve this problem. So I don't even have to pay attention and worry about it, right? They're just going to somehow magically solve the problem. And, you know, when that happened, and maybe Aaron can say a few words about this at the end or something if we have time, we started something called the Global Cyber Pledge. And if you go to our website, you'll see it there. But, you know, the concept is just, it's a very simple pledge. You can read it yourselves. I'm not even going to go through this, but it's just the concept that people need to take educating themselves, their friends, their families, their business coworkers, their constituents into their own hands a little bit, right? They need to have an active role in all of this stuff and continue to learn. I was not a cybersecurity professional. Like many of you on this call, I started my career in other aspects of technology. I think I started in my very first assignments were in IT cabling, designing cabling infrastructure. Over the years, I have grown my expertise, I've grown my reputation, I've grown my background, I've grown some businesses, but all along I've been getting some education in cybersecurity, and I got very serious about it in 2004 when we acquired an MSP/MSSP in my old consulting company. And of course, I'm like a lot of you, self-taught, I've learned a lot of things, but in my last role as the CTO of a private equity firm in the Bay Area, I spent a tremendous amount of time educating people and building cybersecurity awareness plans, educating our partners, our staff. But of course, Josh, could you talk to my family? Could you talk to our, you know, we have a home network, and you come look, I mean, and then my own family, cousins, friends, LinkedIn supporters, people like that. And I just feel like there aren't enough people that are doing that. So I just want to say, Stan and Diane, this is, in my view, a fantastic cause. And I think we have 20 something people on the call here. I hope that when I attend a Secure the Village call in a year, we have 500 people on the call, because I just think there just aren't enough people that are getting involved and taking it seriously to educate themselves. So thank you for putting this together. Let me see if I can share my screen here, and you guys should, or did I already? Can you guys see the Aiden screen on the screen? Is that coming?
No,
through?
not yet.
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's so weird. All right. Hopefully.
There it is.
Now we can see it.
Great. Okay, and I can see all of you, so that's a good start. So a little bit about Aiden, but I don't want to make this an Aiden sales pitch. Aiden is in this industry. We are not a pure cybersecurity solution. That's not what we're doing. We are enhancing cybersecurity posture by figuring out innovative ways, as Sean mentioned earlier, to keep computers up to date effectively through automation, so the computers are updating themselves. And what I really want to talk about today is what impressed me when I first met Sean about this whole paradigm of the way he's doing things. I decided to leave a career in private equity, frankly, a pretty lucrative one, to go build this company with him and the team that we've assembled. And it was because this is a true paradigm shift to me. And so what I really want to talk about is that paradigm shift. What is it that we think we're creating? What is this change in the marketplace? So first of all, one of the things that's extremely clear to me, I was a consultant, as I mentioned, and actually I've worked with lots of big organizations, companies like Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, Reuters, we moved the New York Board of Trade, large healthcare companies like Northwell Health and Mount Sinai, telecom and media companies like Viacom, and all kinds of things, right? So across every company that I ever consulted with, I always saw that the risk and compliance folks have a job. The IT security people, they have their profession and they master it. And particularly in large organizations, this is extremely present. And the IT infrastructure folks that I was often the one supporting, they almost all live in what I just, we call it siloed, right? They are siloed from each other. They're not always incentivized the same way, for sure. And, it's like, what happens if IT infrastructure teams and people involved in risk compliance and cybersecurity can actually start solving problems together, really working on things together? And that is starting to happen now. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, for many, many years in our industry, that did not happen. So many other things were shared knowledge. And this just seemed like these were really kind of domain expertise for people. So, common practices in IT infrastructure for a very long time didn't have a lot of influence from cybersecurity. Now, of course, this is top of mind for so many people, right? And so that's, the first kind of big thing here. Sorry, I think you might have seen that. I'm getting a notification that I'm late to family dinner. So, this is just a huge topic in general. And it's producing for me is this whole concept that vulnerabilities in organizations just last too long, right? We see them all the time. Everybody is now talking and they're aware of them, but the processes still aren't in place to deal with them. And these are real world statistics. We're not making these numbers up. These are numbers that we've analyzed in a lot of sources, and you can find different sources that may be slightly different. But when you're seeing things like 80% of patches, whenever a vulnerability is discovered in the wild, are available in 24 hours, but companies are taking an average of 3 to 4 months. And of course, we've met some companies that are on the far end of that spectrum. I've seen companies that I've been involved with as a consultant where I come in and look at them, and sometimes there are things that haven't been patched in years, servers that haven't been patched in years. And you say to yourself, why? Well, fundamentally, patching sucks. It's not fun. People don't like doing it. And the methods that are in place are very manual processes, right? There are tools on the market, and we can talk about some of those, but there's a lot of tools. There are tools like I've used over my career, like many of you may have heard of BigFix or Patch My PC or Avanti Patch. All the tools that are on the market for doing patching and updating computers, I think, and I would humbly submit, came into existence because no one ever really solved the root of the problem, which is that in the PC infrastructure, the Microsoft server and PC world, there has not been a good solution. Apple did a much better job, frankly, of solving this challenge after they got through the innovation of iOS and iPod and iPhone and all of that. They built an app store for applications, and then they applied that same concept to the world of their computers, their PCs. And so now you effectively have an ecosystem and an app store that people publish apps through. And in the Apple world, it works much better. It's not perfect. There are tools out there to help with that too. But they've certainly done some. And in general, everyone is using manual processes. You still have engineers learning how to update machines, and then humans figuring out how to identify vulnerabilities, remediate the vulnerabilities, and then validate that the remediation work is all done. And there's a ton of firefighting and maintenance that comes up every time you read in the news that there's another cybersecurity crisis or anything that happens. You see IT teams all over the place running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to now patch quickly or now fix something right away. And I mean, SolarWinds was an excellent example of that, right? People see it, and then all of a sudden the CISA is putting out, organization-wide bulletins to the federal government. People are running around, and it's a huge problem. It's systemically creating other issues. There's tremendous lost productivity for not only the IT people involved in fixing it, but the end users are seeing productivity losses at the computers they're using with their core applications every day. And it's just been a suboptimal experience all around. And the last thing I want to point out is that CIOs and CTOs, if you read reports out there, there are a ton of things in the industry talking about how they're afraid to get fired, that the average tenure these days of like a CTO or CIO is less than 2 years. Well, they're afraid, number one, of having a breach or an outage. But the second reason they're afraid is not getting their high visibility, high profile projects done. And there's this constant tug of war between, do I take the IT people that I have and put them on the maintenance activities that are involved in updating computers, keeping things up to date and keeping our cybersecurity posture strong? Or do I put them on the new dashboard the CEO wants or the sales team wants? And a lot of times they are the same resource, particularly in mid-sized organizations. The very largest enterprises have a little more of this, but I'm sure all of you are reading about the IT labor gap that's out there in the world. So what's the root of this problem? Well, there's growing complexity, right? I mean, since I started off in computers, and many of us did 30 years ago, the sheer number of applications is growing very, very, very quickly. You have a lot of change recently due to the work from home shift, right? We were already starting work from home and that was a thing in organizations, but then something like COVID hits. And before you know it, all of our networks are changing. Everybody's working from home. Now we got to rethink how we deploy software into computers that are in people's home offices. And what's effectively happened there is many CIOs and CTOs have fallen even further behind, particularly in healthcare. And they're just not updating because they're afraid that if they update, they're going to break something and damage functionality even further. And they knew that the methods they had for updating weren't very good in the first place. So it's actually gotten worse over the past year. Updates for software are coming out with greater, frequency than ever before. When a decade ago, 2 decades ago, you'd maybe have a major release of software once a year tops. Now, sometimes you'll see a major release 2-3 times a year. This culture of these, right, of having a phone in my pocket and the app updating all the time is now becoming something that people want to see on the desktop as an experience. So that's a huge issue that's really contributing to this. And there's a huge lack of alignment between the groups I mentioned were siloed, right? You have the IT and the infrastructure people that are working on these problems. You have cybersecurity people that are incentivized very differently sometimes and are trying to tell these groups in IT that they should do things. And there's resentment sometimes that builds up. I have seen this as a consultant many times over the years. People like to say a lot of times, well, no, we get along great and we're all on the same team and we're working together. But frankly, I'm here to tell you that is a farce in a lot of organizations. The IT people don't like being shoulded, right? They don't like when cybersecurity says, hey, we should update this right now, drop everything else you're doing. We want you to patch this vulnerability. They're like, hey man, I have 20 other priorities and the business wants this new thing we're doing, or we're moving our headquarters to a new location, or we're upgrading and moving systems to the cloud. There's always contention in organizations around this topic. And there's no common language. There's no, IT people are writing XML queries and PowerShell scripts and all kinds of things to do their job. Cybersecurity people are looking at vulnerability data and SIEM tools. If you don't know what that is, it's security incident and event response monitoring. I mean, but they're just a whole different world of tools and solutions. And there's really very few people who can very highly effectively, cross the spectrum. And so what ends up happening is they really are learning 2 different languages. They're living in 2 different universes, and that breaks down communication. And then finally, because of all the manual work that I mentioned earlier, it breaks down, and there are many times that they know what to do, but they just don't get what they need to do done properly. And so there's too much room for manual error, and all of these things are cyclical, right? One feeds the other. We have an error, now we got to fix the error, now that creates more firefighting. It's like a constant spiral of things that happen. And I'm sure Juan, who I know real well now, and other people on this call have lived this, this reality in IT for a very, very, very long time. So the question is, what do we do about this? How do we deal with it? Well, we are really looking at it from this lens. You can't solve all the problems all the time. right? But what's causing the most pain out there? Where do you get the maximum benefit if you fix this issue? And we really feel strongly that Windows is the biggest issue. As you can see with some of the data that I have on the screen here, number one, every vulnerability database and every scanning tool out there is showing thousands of vulnerabilities per month. And it's growing, it's not decreasing. And they're all saying that the majority of those are in Windows. For a while, maybe 7 years ago, there was kind of a thing saying that it was in Mac OS just as much. But as their app store and ecosystem's gotten better, it's not that it's not there. I'm sure you all probably saw the big one last week, which was Silver Sparrow. But there are absolutely more velocity of vulnerabilities in Windows. And because of the work from home problem that we have, all these hackers are taking advantage of us using elevation of privilege attacks to be able to figure out how to get into anyone's home office that's not even on the corporate network and get the data they need to then go attack the corporate network, right? So not keeping endpoints up to date in the work from home environment is absolutely a disaster in today's world. And just on sheer numbers, as you can see with this stat on the screen, over 88% of the computers are Windows. And for a while that they had started to lose some market share, but that's actually grown again. And with Satya in command of Microsoft and some of the moves they've made, it's actually growing. So while we'd like to eventually solve this problem for the universe, there's a lot to be gained if we can solve the problem for the Windows ecosystem. So it's very clear that a new approach is needed, and it's regardless of industry, because I've worked in financial services, I've worked in healthcare, life sciences, federal government. Across all these industries, more than 85% of the applications out there are common, right? Everybody uses Microsoft Office. Everybody uses Adobe. Maybe somebody has some other PDF reader, but anybody doing a lot of work usually is using Adobe, right? There's a lot of people have Zoom, which we're all on today. A lot of people have Microsoft Teams or WebEx, right? There's just a common set of technology out there that is the bulk. And then about the other 10 or 15% is related to industry specific domain expertise and application. So there's a tremendous amount of redundancy. People are looking at the same sources of information. They're looking at Reddit, Google, YouTube. There's a ton of other online communities, which I'm sure Stan is probably a member of 90 of them. I'm a member of several of them, and I'm sure many of us here are. And we're looking at the same set of vulnerability data. And yet, when it comes to the IT infrastructure team in these companies, they're all reinventing the wheel because every company is getting that threat intelligence or that vulnerability data, and then their IT department is going and figuring out how to deal with it and how to update systems to make them better. And to us, and to me personally, I've watched this for 30 years and it does not make any sense. Why can't there be a common way to do things? So first of all, we're looking at how do you create one common language, right? What's the easiest language? It's actually very interesting because across the world, and I know Juan, who's on this call, works at a global translation services company. So, they care a lot about translating things into multilingual. But IT, believe it or not, is the most common thing being done in English around the world. So just by starting with plain English as a framework, you get 98% of the world's IT people. And you can standardize and simplify things around plain English. And this is very much like what's gone on in the legal industry. I'm sure you've heard that in the legal industry over the years, people want to get away from legalese and they want to get more and more towards plain English. The second thing is leveraging the wisdom of the crowd. As I mentioned before, people absolutely share all the time the threats that are out there. It's the first thing you'll read about. There's a new threat, like the Silver Sparrow thing from last week, right? But how long is it before people share how they're dealing with or solving the threat? Everybody's very protective of that information, right? Is that, because of competitive advantage? I don't really think so. Is it because nobody wants to, quote unquote, open the kimono and show people what's going on behind the scenes? right? Or, the Wizard of Oz, don't look back here at what I'm doing. But there has to be in the IT community this willingness eventually, and it's happening a little by little, but we're trying to foster that, and that's what Secure the Village is all about too. A wisdom of crowd, right? We can learn from each other so much faster. What if we can create a framework or a technology platform that absolutely does that by design? And then aligning around one source of truth. Every company figuring out how to update Zoom. Remember 8-10 months ago, Zoom had a huge problem when they first got so big. We were watching every company around the world figuring out why it's breaking machines, what's the security problem, updating. And then it's almost ironic, but about 2 months ago, WebEx had a major security problem. And all the companies that fled Zoom and went to WebEx back then started fleeing WebEx and going to Zoom because now they fixed their security problems. Why is everyone going through all of the engineering work that's associated with swapping those applications? If companies have figured out how to swap one way to another, why can't we figure out how to swap back and forth at will? So we were looking for a solution, and the solution that Sean, frankly, came up with here is intelligent packaging. And for those of you that don't know what packaging is just writing a script or software around an installation program and figuring out a way to make it land on a computer and deploy correctly so that it doesn't have a problem and update a machine. And that's a very layman's kind of version of this, but I know we have a very diverse audience here, so I don't want to talk in too much technical jargon. And if people have questions, they can talk to Sean about that a lot more. But fundamentally, there are IT organizations that are using engineering resources to write XML database queries, PowerShell scripts you may have heard of. Something in Microsoft is called GPOs, which is group policy objects, which is another thing that has to be scripted out. And with this concept of packaging, you can actually do a lot more in an intelligent package that's highly customized than all of that. So that's the first thing, right? How can we really, really scale? And then there's a idea here, which is how do you create a medium that seamlessly integrates into what IT departments are already doing all over the world? Well, every IT organization that I know of has some kind of tool that, because Microsoft has free ones, that can deploy a package to a computer or a server that's already in place. So if you can figure out a way to leverage this technology, this packaging technology, you can leverage the infrastructure that companies have already got, the plumbing that they already have to reach their endpoints. Because it's no different than downloading a piece of software and installing it. And then by design, because of that rubric, that method, you don't have to do any custom integration. All you have to do is create great packages and push them out at scale, at speed. And then finally, packages are portable applications, which makes them lightweight. So when we talk about distributing onto a computer, I'm sure you're all familiar with this fact that you look at your computers these days, particularly PCs, and there's a million things running on your computer, competing for the resources on that machine in your system tray. And just nobody wants more stuff running on their computer. But all of the ways that things are being updated today requires installing another what we call agent, or something that's persistent and always running on your computer, always looking at it. One of the special things about packages in the way Microsoft designed this technology is that they deploy on computers, and when they're done running, they disappear. If you've ever installed a piece of software yourself, after you run the installer, it'll often just automatically delete it or ask you if you want to delete it. It isn't something that sits on your computer and continues to run, tying up system resources or competing for resources. And so we felt this was the lightest weight, most efficient way to solve the problem. And we want to talk about some use cases. What are some use cases that, because I think people think packaging can only deploy software, but it can do like a single piece of software. It can do much, much more. And that's what we have been experimenting with, essentially. A single package can be written to deploy virtual desktops, not just physical machines, but if you've heard of virtual desktops where people like in a work from home office can log in and get a remote screen sharing session where they're accessing a computer that's either in a data center somewhere in the cloud somewhere, a single package can update a virtual desktop instance. And it can not only do it for Windows, what they call remote desktop services in Windows, it can do it for, I'm sure you've all heard of Citrix. That's been around a long time, and that's been a common remote desktop provider. It can do it for Citrix. You can not only build a server that builds all of the remote desktops, but update every single application on every remote desktop and keep them up to date forever with one common framework, packaging. And we've done this. Bare metal, you can deploy computers from scratch, whether they are physical machines, laptops, desktops, servers sitting in a data center, or virtual machines. The term bare metal is now used to apply to virtual as well, not just physical. And what that means is this method can look at a machine, determine right away that it has nothing running on it yet because it's new, and just see it as 100% out of compliance with what it needs to have. And then using packaging, it can deploy every single piece of software, firmware updates, BIOS settings, everything that needs to be on that computer. And then it's also the fact that most deployment tools that are out there today only are doing third-party software. Things like GPOs that we talked about before, or PowerShell scripts, mostly only update third-party software. There hasn't been a way until we looked at this technology to update everything on an endpoint. The firmware, the BIOS, the third-party software, the Microsoft operating system software that's running on it, and any preferences or settings, any custom vulnerabilities, things like regional settings, office, layouts, desktop layouts, anything that's running on a machine can be done with this technology. And that's what's really, really very special about this. And what it really is a term you may have all heard of in industry now. It's being thrown around a lot. It's DevOps for Windows. And I'm going to talk about that here. So how do we do this, right? Because packages are something that actually take quite a bit of time to write. It is not trivial to write a highly intelligent package that can do all the things I'm telling you about. If you separate the common code of, remember I talked about 85, 90% or more is common code. Every company is doing the same thing, right? Every company in the world has figured out how to write a package that can deploy Zoom. Every company in the world has written a package that can figure out how to deploy Adobe Acrobat, Microsoft Office, real-time device drivers, printer drivers for Canon computers, whatever, right? For Canon printers, I'm sorry. All of that stuff has been figured out time and time and time again. So if you turn that into code and you put it in a common code repository, and then you take the stuff that's customer specific. So maybe a customer like Juan's company that works in life sciences, they have some homegrown applications that are for translation services that no one else has. Those have to be packaged.
I mean, I can, if you don't mind, this past weekend, we patched over 600 machines. Half of them were virtual, half of them were physical on different environments with one package that Sean provided us. We basically updated the operating system, the firmware, third-party applications, one click of a button. That basically my head engineer was able to sleep 8 hours finally on the weekend. So it was pretty awesome for one. I guess to that, also the fact that it's completely automated, and then we just see what the percentages of completions are. In our case, was probably about 99.6, which is unheard of. I mean, to do it automatically without us just clicking buttons.
Thank you. So, Juan is a testimonial that it works, but I do want to explain a little more about how it works. So, all of that can be kept in a customer-specific code repository. And then what was really special about Sean's innovation and how he figured this out is that you can merge code. So in the back, we are able to merge what we call common code. That's wisdom of the crowd that's been collected from hundreds of companies over the years, and he's been doing this since 2004, with customer specific code. So if a customer says, you know, we just got a new single sign-on tool, we want to use Okta or OneLogon as the thing we're going to log into all of our applications with. That may be different in every customer. That's fine. That lives in their customer specific packaging repository, if you will. And then we have special technology that we are inventing and constantly perfecting that merges these things in the back end, creating a virtual repository so that every single company, what is the benefit of doing it this way? Well, every single company in the world can have their own highly specific library of these highly intelligent packages. And that is segregated from other customers. So from a risk committee or compliance standpoint, all their data, all of their innovations, anything that's proprietary to their customer, to their company or organization, that can stay separate from all other customers. And the second benefit that's really, really important about this is that it's allowing them to not just have this segregation of customer data, but a completely unique and customized experience. So if a company says, I'll give you an example. I'm sure you're all maybe familiar with, like, when you download Adobe these days, I hope many of you are familiar with this, they will often now give you in a new update access to what they call the Adobe Document Cloud. So when you go to save an Adobe document, you can select if you want it to go into Adobe's Document Cloud or somewhere on your network or in your Microsoft Cloud or wherever you want it. But a lot of companies, for compliance purposes, even though Adobe updates their software and allows that to happen, or Zoom would be a good example. Maybe I don't want Zoom to be able to store cloud recordings of my meetings. I may, as an organization, decide I don't want that. I can make that decision, and then my version of Zoom, my version of Adobe, or whatever's being rolled out to all of our computers can have those preferences and know about those preferences. So those two benefits of doing it this way are very important, and yet it can be achieved at scale. The second big innovation here is what I talked about with the one common language. We are leveraging a technique that people refer to as natural language processing, NLP, but we have to figure this out in a new way. And I'm going to explain that a little bit. So the software can scan an endpoint and figure out what to do. But then instead of just writing a bunch of scripts and technology and these intelligent packages that people don't understand, it reads a plain English policy file as a configuration document. So when all these things I'm telling you, like I want to use Adobe, but I don't want to have Document Cloud enabled. Or, you know, I want this specific version of Zoom. Maybe I want an older version because it had functionality that I want to preserve in my environment. Or I want to use this single sign-on tool or whatever it is. All of that can be written down in plain English. And then by using Aiden, this technology we've developed, this natural language processing, you actually read that to determine what packages to install on the endpoint and then execute the plan on the endpoint. By doing it with natural language processing, it's building one common knowledge base, one common repository in a company. So an IT person can look at it and understand what's happening in the environment, but so can an executive in the organization. So can an outside auditor who wants to come in and look at that policy. There's no separate configuration file. The plain English document is the configuration that the technology reads in order to update the endpoint. And so that was a very important innovation using AI and natural language processing. And I'm going to wrap up here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you that this is real. It's not skunkworks. It's not mythical. It's not something that doesn't work. Over the last 2 years, we've innovated and we've built on top of a 16-year repository of highly intelligent packages that came from that wisdom of the crowd from hundreds of companies. And we've now layered this approach on top of it. And this is a quick video of our software at Aiden running, our solution. but it's going to go by quickly. I just want to give you a taste of what it does. The plain English policy file is in the background here. So it says things like Adobe Acrobat is for any workstation or for marketing. Aiden is context aware. It knows what marketing is, and it knows which computers are part of marketing. You have to tell it that, but every time you tell it something, it knows. So when you run it, this is an example of Aiden running and showing that it's context aware. If you switch the context from a lab computer to marketing, Aiden scans the computer, builds an entirely new plan, because for a marketing computer, we need to add Inkscape and Krita and some corporate fonts or things like that that the computer needs. And we still need to update some things, and we need to remove Java because we don't allow Java in our environment. It's a security vulnerability. And it does all of that. What I just showed you was recorded as a video in real time. So, and that's the point that I wanted to make. It's accurate and it's done in real time because it's a computer figuring out how to build and support other computers. If a human engineer did this, just looking at this one computer, looking at an inventory of all the software on it, trying to figure out what packages it needs to deploy and build a plan of what to do on this computer could take hours. But with a computer building other computers, and I do realize, by the way, it's a little scary. We all saw the movie Terminator where the computers became aware. But that's effectively what we're doing here. This is the early stages of that. This is computers building other computers. It can do it very, very, very quickly. The second thing is, as I mentioned earlier, the technology was designed to work in any deployment infrastructure. So all the tools that are on the left, and there are many, many more, I can't fit them all on a slide, but these are some of the big names in the industry, have all been created to try to make keeping computers up to date easier for engineers. But as I said in the beginning, I would humbly submit to you, they've taken this approach of making a framework to make it easier instead of just solving the problem. The video I'm now going to show you is how you would schedule Aiden to work in a free tool from Microsoft called WSUS, which anyone can get that runs Microsoft for free. And there's some other tools from Amazon and other places that are free. But fundamentally, all you have to do now is schedule Aiden to run. And we call this automated compliance. So instead of loading any one of these packages, if you just load aiden.exe and approve it to run on a group of machines, and here in this demo, we're showing it on a group of pilot workstations just to show it running. As soon as you create that command and lock it in place, that group of computers that are defined as pilot workstations, they're locked into compliance on a schedule. Aiden will run every day, every 2 hours, every week, whatever the IT team decides is that cadence, and it will do what it did in the version before. It'll keep all those machines updated. And this is, in our view, the big, big innovation. And whether we solve the problem or someone else comes along and solves the problem, our feeling is that a fundamental paradigm shift is needed, as I said before. Things like one common language, being able to use English as the language everyone understands, so that there's less contention between groups and they can all share. The idea that you can automate a lot of work that a lot of companies have already done by taking that into a common code base and scripting it and making it available to everybody and sharing that knowledge across every company. And then lastly, making it so lightweight and easy to deploy inside of existing, even free tools that are in the industry. And, you know, with that, I'm happy to take questions, and I thank everybody for their time today. But, you know, that's what our company is about. And we think this is just our first product. We have lots of other products that we want to develop in our product roadmap. Some of them we're going to be patenting and things I don't want to share today, but all with this same idea in mind, which is how can we leverage all this knowledge that's been out in IT for so long and package it, no pun intended, in a way that everyone can access it easily and share. And thank you, everyone.
That was super. Josh, thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments, thoughts?
I have a question. And Josh, do you use companies for beta testing? I mean, do you look for those type of resources to do some beta testing on them and
That's a great question.
with your advertisement?
Yes, we do. We will, if we can figure out a company's use case and what they want to do and, you know, kind of well define it, we will start off into the POC, a proof of, or POV, we like to call it. We like to call it proof of value, not proof of concept, right? But because we feel like the concept has already been proven because we have active clients that have been using it now for a while, very effectively. But yes, we're absolutely interested in proof of value exercises with people. And even if they come to us, Diane, with a very unique use case, that's fine. Because often the engineering work that we have to put into the back end to make something work, because of the framework we've built, the way that it scales across customers, as virtual repositories, we can, if we perfect it for one client, we can make it available to all clients, right? And it's very much like a firewall in that sense. For those of you that are familiar with firewall technology, if they see a 0-day problem, right? What's the number one thing? We see a 0-day problem at a company, we solve it, we add it to one firewall, it cascades through the entire network to all firewalls. Well, in our world, we cascade it across those virtual repositories by asking our clients, we found this problem, we found a unique solution to a problem, would you like us to add it to your repository? And if they say yes, for us on the back end, it's a click of a button once we built it.
I was thinking along the lines also, so I work with a lot of biotech companies and their startups and you know, you want to be proactive in securing yourself. And so I was thinking maybe I could help pitch you to some of my clients as well, maybe start with some of them. You know, they're going to be growing rapidly. You know, what do they need to watch out for?
We actually just got a biotech company. I don't know if I'm allowed to name them, but they're in the genetics.
That's why I didn't.
They're in the genetics testing space. So I just tell you, and if you're familiar with like 23andMe, it's very much like that. There are 500 people and growing very quickly. They just raised a huge amount of money. And what they're doing is for very, very advanced medical conditions. They're doing custom genetic testing, effectively, like 23andMe, to be able to provide people and doctors with insight and information that could help develop a treatment or a cure for their condition.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'll ask just.
I was gonna say one of the challenges we have as an MSP is when we are automating patch management, and we use some third-party solutions that we're pulling patches from and so forth. One of the things we ran into is we wanted to try to be in compliance with the, you know, NIST standards, which are not exactly specific. I think the language says that patches need to be applied as soon as reasonably practicable or something along those lines. We wanted to patch on a weekly basis our clients, but what we found is that when you have hundreds and hundreds of nodes running different software, one of the issues you run into is because we're not dealing with a large enterprise, we don't have a test environment where we can deploy them on a limited basis to see what it blows up. We're at a disadvantage if everything goes out at once and then everything blows up and it has to be rolled back. Then you have a manpower issue putting everything back to the state it was in prior to the patch when you have a conflict and you've got all this different software running. I mean, in the meantime, what we've done for the time being is come up with a solution to essentially break our clients into, like, within their client, we offer to break them into groups based on what software they're running in different categories of the organization, and then within those groups, only deploy to, you know, say in week 1 a new patch comes out, only deployed to certain members in that group to see if it causes a problem. So we're mitigating the amount of damage that we do if a patch is released and we find out, you know, days later that for some reason it's caused a software problem or conflict on the workstation, which we don't have the ability to really run a test environment for. I'm curious to know if anybody else has any creative solutions to dealing with that issue other than, the enterprise testing first on everything.
One of the things, thank you for your question, Oliver. One of the things that we do is we are, because of this wisdom of the crowd I talked about, right? And that all of our clients are doing things. It's very, very rare that we are deploying anything that's quote unquote 0 day, meaning it's been vetted, it's been solved somewhere else. The challenges that have come up with landing it on a machine have already been solved. Whenever a client is getting a patch from Aiden, a package really, not a patch, it's already been pre-vetted. And then on top of it, for MSP, we have some MSP partners now. We are always recommending that they have some pilot group, and it may be themselves, or it may be, that they just set aside a couple of computers for that or whatever, and that they still do things in what I'll call a phased or ringed deployment. And Sean can talk about this more because I know, Sean, if you want to jump in here, but Sean created this for a 4,000 person MSP in the Bay Area that had this exact challenge you're talking about, Oliver. And the whole design was designed to mitigate as much of that as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can give details. I'll try not to get too nerdy. But Aiden's default mode is, if you're familiar with PowerShell, it's this what if mode. So what happens in our customers, when something new comes out, an IT person's thinking about deploying it, even before they deploy to a pilot phase, they just double click on Aiden, and Aiden looks at the machine they ran it on and says, hey, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. And it'll display it on the screen without actually doing anything. So it tells you what would Aiden have done if we put it into silent mode, if we pushed it out. And then often an IT person will just connect to one or two or whatever machines and just let Aiden do what it wants to do and make sure everything looks good. And only then do they approve it for a smaller group of computers like you described earlier, Oliver. They often call a pilot group or a staging group. They have different names. And really that catches pretty much anything, because like as Josh said before, it even got to them and they ran it on one machine. We not only tested it in our lab, but more than likely other customers have already tested it too. Every single customer benefits from the feedback and troubleshooting and ideas from every other customer. Because everything's in code, every time there's a new version of this package, we're not creating it from scratch again. We're just updating the latest, update files, right? So all the logic is all maintained and carried forward. So it's very, very reliable design. And this is becoming the norm. And everyone, I think, I hear from, they think this is the future, at least in infrastructure. And these are some concepts that DevOps uses. But no one's talking about applying these same methodologies, which everyone considers the future, to PCs. Why not? So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, Oliver, I would suggest, and I mean, just so I also have a background in MSPs, is to try yourself. You become a POV and try and kick the tires on it.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. I love your R2D2 in the back, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But that is the best way to do it. I mean, although I'm an enterprise, I did the same process here of testing and then kicking the tires on a separate environment to see how the software works, how I deploy it, and everything. Because it does a lot of things. But one of the two last things that I think, Josh, you kind of didn't mention, because I don't think Aiden has realized that it's a feature. It actually serves as a software library and inventory. Like in the day-to-day running around in file installation files all over the place, this also serves as a repository for all the valid software that you can validate, and at the same time, remove the old and test what's actually in your core environment.
Right. We would love to do.
Test it, run it.
Yeah. But that's one of the things. I mean, we would love to be able to. I don't. Am I still muted? No. We would love to be able to have a staging environment. The problem that we run into is with 100 clients, you can't anticipate all the different situations, and they'll have people may have unique tax software. We have a lot of financial clients, things that they might not even until they're using the product for a few days realize that there's some sort of a challenge or a snag. But ideally, in anything that has the ability to any solution that pre-test them at least to see if there's any glaring issues would be helpful. If we set up test environments within our own organization, the problem then becomes one of cost, because you want to keep the cost down for the client for the service. And when you have human capital spent on doing the testing, it's a little trickier than if you have one enterprise, and that's where we run into it. But otherwise, that's exactly what we would be doing.
Okay. Cool. That's good. I'm going to just jump in the interest of time, because it's already 20 to 6 on the Pacific time. I feel sorry for you in Boston and Philadelphia. It's like it's almost bedtime or something. But the discussion is exactly what we want to get started here. I mean, I would hope that Oliver, you continue to pick this up offline, obviously, and the same with everybody, because what was you said it, Josh, leveraging the wisdom of crowds. And of course, we're a crowd, let's do it that way, if you would. I found this extreme. I've seen this demo before and all, but I still found this this opportunity again to bring technology to bear this way, and that unifying language, so we know what we're talking about. Because in cybersecurity, that's so much the challenge. So often, one person thinks this, somebody else thinks that, using the same set of words. So it's having that syntax, if you will. Also, so very, very helpful. I do want to move on, just as I say, the interest of time. I'm going to just real quickly take it home on a few slides of ours. I had some others and had hoped to have a really nice discussion around some other things we might be able to do collectively as a group, but we'll do that next month. What you're looking at right now is we've got 6 programs. This is not the only one we have. And again, I'm not going to take you through all of them. The most important, though, if any of you are employers of cybersecurity talent, think about apprentice programs, intern programs, thinking like that. We have a working group, it's workforce working group that meets once a month on the 3rd Tuesday. Come play with us if you're in that space and you're looking for programs. Also, just beyond that, get engaged. I hope you got as much value out of this as I did, but very, very much super. If you're new, come on back. We've got, as you saw, 6 programs a month. We've got a growing library, and we've got what we call the Village Square. Josh and Meet Aiden are part of the Village Square. Diane's on the Village Square. Jason Meshko's on the Village Square. Steve Krantz is, and some of the others. So come join us, come play with us, and think about becoming a cyber leader, a cyber partner if you're in the cyberspace. Right now it's free. We're not charging for this, although we will probably in the next couple of months, we'll begin putting a price on it. But when you become a cyber leader or your company becomes a cyber partner, you get to post your events on our calendar. So they go out to all of our connections on LinkedIn and in our weekly newsletter and all those other places. You get to contribute to the library so that other people can benefit from your knowledge, and you of course get listed in the Village Square as well. So think about that. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can do that right off our website. If you become a cyber leader, a cyber partner, a cyber guardian, that's automatic. Follow us on LinkedIn, join a working group, and introduce us. Like Jason, you're wonderful at this, introducing us to your colleagues. And that's how we're going to grow the village, is people knowing people, knowing people, knowing people. I had hoped to have enough time today to have a temperature check. How was the meeting? What worked? What could we do better? I don't know, certainly getting the Zoom thing, whether it was Zoom or us, getting that working better is something we will certainly do. But again, it's already 5:45. Our next meeting is March 23rd. you have seen Mariana and Doug. Doug's our speaker from Ponderance on the domain controller security. Again, we're down in the weeds, but my God, we know the devil is in the details, particularly when it comes to cybersecurity. So we're going to take that deep dive next month. The month after that is MJ Shore, who has just started an information, not just started, I just found out about an information security awareness organization for sharing of knowledge, managed through CompTIA, which all the MSPs, MSSPs, you all know about that. Beyond that, yeah, quick shout out. I wrote a book, The Agnostic Patriot. It's not Republican or Democrat or right or left or pro this or anti that or any of that. It's up above the battle. Are we really all created equal? Does the Declaration really mean that? You know, that's what these essays are about. And it's my love of America as well. You see reflected in there and the great teachers that I had